Welcome to Amud Yomi Shiur, Maseches Bava Metzia, Daf Samachtes Amud Beis. We're getting close to the bottom of the page, Samachtes Amud Beis, and these are still the sugyas of Iska, Ribbis. We have a chart today, and we have good vibes. It's Rosh Chodesh Nisan, good Chodesh. Today is the real Rosh Hashanah, Rosh Chodesh Nisan, and Rosh Hashanah LeMelachim, the kings. We are kings today. Welcome to everybody here in Avos Shalom. Welcome to everybody in YouTube and Torah Anytime. Omar Rav, Omar Rav, Omar Rav. Rav said, yep. Agra, yeah, excuse me, Sfinta, sorry. Sfinta, Omarav, Agra, Pagra, which means as follows. A person may rent out a boat, okay, and take what we think is normal is a chiddush. A person who rents it out, the rent a boat guy, can tell the guy who rented, the guy who hired the boat, the guy who's going to sail the boat, yeah, the one who's renting, he can tell him, listen, Agra and Pagra. Agra, you have to pay me, I don't know, 50 shekels a day, pay me, I don't know, $1,000 a month. I don't know. I don't usually rent any of my boats, yeah, because I don't have any. And besides that, if anything happens to the boat and the boat gets lost, then you have to pay. You have to pay in full. My boat is worth 500,000 shekel. You got to pay 500,000. We may think it's not a chiddush, but it's a big chiddush. It's a big chiddush. Why? Because really, yeah, what's the story with a person that is mechuyev to pay back something that he borrowed from his own pocket, 500,000? That is really considered like halva. That's really a halva. In other words, rental versus loan, spot the differences. In other words, the idea is that if I borrowed something and I'm the borrower, I'm required to pay in case of loss. In case of anything, I always have to pay. The money devaluated, lost, tear, whatever. If I borrowed money, I have to come back with the money. Whatever happens, there are no excuses whatsoever. If you treat a soicher like a loive, and you tell Mr. Soicher you got to pay in full, it's as if you borrowed it in a way, halachically. So if you borrowed and you also take money for the borrowing, I think that's called in the old Chinese, Ribbis. And therefore, it's going to be okay at the end. But right now, Rav Kana Rav Asi, Omrule Rav Kana Rav Asi, the big two Talmidim of Rav, LeRav, they asked Rav, I agra loy pagra, I pagra loy agra, you can't have the cake and eat it. Either you take agra, which means you can take what the sum of whatever you want, the rental fee, you can take the rental, but then you can't be mechayivim to pay you the boat, right? And then you're proper renter, then you're like a borrower, and then you then take money for the borrowing. No, then you're a renter, Agra loy pagra. If you take sachar, you're just renting, but then if the boat breaks, then he's a renter, not a borrower, because if he has to pay back the entire boat from his own pocket if it gets lost, then really that's bad news. You can't have both. Ipagra loy agra. If you take the pagra, that is to say, if the boat will be compensated for from his own pocket, he'll have to pay the 500,000 worth of the actual boat. That's like giving back new money. It's a giving back a new boat, and therefore he's called a borrower. Borrower loy agra. You can't take money for borrowing because 2 + 2 = Ribbis. Shasik Rav kept quiet. Rav didn't know what to say, and then the meaning like, okay, what can I tell you? Amar Rav Sheshes. Rav Sheshes is coming now to support Rav. Rav Sheshes is coming to the rescue. Amar Rav Sheshes. Matai Shasik Rav. Why does Rav keep quiet? Lo shmir lehod Tanya. Doesn't Rav know the following brisa that says Afal pi hodetani? It says like this: Afal pi shomu. The brisa says something very simple. Afal pi shomu. Even though they say ein mekablin son bazel misol. By the way, it's also very similar to a Mishnah we'll see later, and not just a brisa. Ein mekablin son bazel misol. One Jew is not allowed to accept another son bazel from another Jew. We are familiar, possibly, with the term son bazel from marriage, from Suba. What's son bazel? If a woman has money, let's say an apartment, or sometimes these are also metaltalin, that she brings into the marriage, what? Could be jewelry. And now the husband is the exclusive only owner of those tachshitim or that land, right? And then that son barzel, meaning this is something that's his, not hers at all, but it's son barzel. It's under his achrayas, just like a roya tzoin, just like a roya, a shepherd looks after the sheep. And also barzel. What's barzel? Eisen, which means she knows that if anything happens to that, to that item, he has to compensate her in full. Which means if the woman, we assess the jewelry she brings into the marriage or the apartment in $1 million, if they get divorced or he dies, then, and now they're worth only half a million, she'll have to be compensated back into an entire million. Oh, meaning Tzon Barzel really is like something in which the responsibility, chayav, is on the one who's handling it, which means Tzon Barzel, even outside marriage. Two men make a deal, and what do they say? I'm giving you this, you play around with it, you make revochim. Of course, I also want to cut in the revochim. I'm not doing you favors, right? And when it, but if anything happens to it below minimum, you're the achroi. That's really what iska. That's alva. That's the iska we've been talking about in the past few days. Yeah. So you're not allowed to do that to Israel. That's actually not such a chiddush. We've seen it all along. It's just new words. Aval mekablin son basil min anochrim. From a guy, you're allowed to. You're allowed to meikir adin. There's Rabanan. Meikir adin. You're allowed to borrow and lend money and do Ribbis oriented iskois businesses with a goyim, and that's okay. Aval omru. Here comes the punchline. Here comes the punchline. Aval omru. However, there's the kula. There's something you're allowed to do. Hasham por lechaveroi. A person wants to do an iska, as we said many, many times before. I'm giving you my cow. I don't know how to treat the cow, how to deal with it, how to breed it. I'm giving it to you with shuma. What's shuma? I assessed it. I evaluated it, and I said, listen, let's go to a professional assessor, and I assessed the parah to be worth 10,000 shekels. The omaloi, arei paros asuya oloi b'shloishim dinar. Okay, says the mikabel, the worker, the one who received the parah. He says, I accept the parah to be worth 30 dinar, which means if he dies, who's going to pay you 30 dinar? Me. Let's say the body is worth 10 dinar. You can sell it to Arabs, yeah. Then what? I'll pay you 20 plus the body. I have to make it up to 30. Besides that, excuse me, it's not the regular iska. It's chirus. It's mamish case. Besides my achrayis, that if the cow dies or whatever, I have to pay it back to you. Besides that, I'm just renting a cow. It's a very, very simple rent a cow. We all rent cows nowadays. A car, cow, whatever. I'll pay you one selah per month. Mutter, that's allowed. The question, of course, is why. But you're allowed to basically rent a cow, rent a car, rent a drill, rent a schwigger, whatever you want to rent. You're allowed to rent, right? You rent it out, yeah. You rent out, and what you can rent it, and at the same time rent with an e, not with an a, rent, yeah. And what can you do? You can actually, besides the monthly fee, demand that if anything happens, you want the entire thing back. Why is that allowed? Because the person who received it, he did not obligate himself to pay it back with money. Says, what? What are you talking about? We just said he did. What? Omar of Sheshes, no. Which means as follows. With all the respect to rent, which we try to say is like what? Is like a loan. Now let's go to the chart, and then I'll explain the Gemara. There are at least three different chiyuvim for a person who received an object to his hands, either as a loan or as a rental. What happens if it devaluates in money? Yeah, when it comes to a loan, no difference. I gave you, I don't know, I borrowed from you 1,000 shekels. I can't say I'm giving you 970. What? Because now, according to the dollar, it's worth less. The shekel devaluated. No such thing. You lent me 1,000, give me 1,000. Yeah, chayiv. The bar is always chayiv. What about loss? I'm so sorry. I lost the money. But came with two eidim, with cameras. I can prove to you that the money got lost. Who cares? You're still chayiv, right? What about the third thing? Wear and tear. I don't know. The money got a bit. That's a shaykh in money. Yeah, worn out. You have to pay back. You have to pay in full. Now the question of the Gemara about rental was this one. We said that in case of loss, he's chayiv, and he is. In the case of the cow or the boat, yeah, the case of the cow or the boat or the whatever, if the entire thing gets lost, dies lost, broken at sea, total loss, as we say in Hebrew, total loss, then he's chayiv. So the Gemara says, oh, it's like a loan. Says the Gemara, no, there's a difference only after death. But devaluation, there isn't. Yeah, That's what Rashi says. About devaluation, he's potur. And because of that, that we'll talk about later, the wear and tear, he's potur from the rental of the boat or the cow or these things is potur in case of devaluation. Of course, in other words, when I rent out the boat to you, the boat, when the boat was given to you, it was worth $500,000. Now, from some reason, let's say the boat market went down and all these fancy yachts are worth less. Yeah, will I demand? I am the renter. I'm the owner. Will I demand of you? Oh, when I gave it to you, it was worth $1,000,000. Now, when you give it back to me, make it up to $1,000,000 because of the market drop? Of course not. Yeah, and therefore it's not like alva. Sigh of relief. Because it's not like alva, that's why I can take agra upagra. Because the responsibility is partial and not full. Therefore, the person who rented the boat, who hired the boat, is now sailing the boat, the skipper, he doesn't have, we can ask from him to both what, be responsible in full for the loss, and at the same time, he still has to pay for every month, because it's not mamish like a loan. We found the difference. If it's not like a loan, then it's not ribbis. Now, lachar misa, lachar the death of the boat or the death of the cow, Omar of Pope says of Pope, that's halacha. Hilchata halacha says sfina agra upagra. Yes, a sfina one may take both agra, which means there's a monthly rental fee. I'm not doing favors to anybody. Plus, if the boat really is gonna die, which is really to break, whatever Titanic #2, then again you'll have to pay me the entire boat, and that's okay because it's not a loan. If it's not a loan, why isn't it a loan? Because the devaluation you don't have to pay. So don't tell me that you're a kilo borrower, and therefore it's not called ribbis, because from schirus I can take ribbis, because schirus is not a loan, and we just now found the difference, the clear difference. And another story to support that, Ain Amud Aleph, we're starting today's Amud actually now, V'nagu bnei Kufra, the people that deal with tar, the boat people, boat owners were called the tar people, because the boat is something you always have to tar, right, to avoid the water from coming, like Noach, Moshe Rabbeinu, right, the sealant. So Bekitzer, the boat renters, they had the minhag, agra bishas Mashicha. They would, at the time of the Mashicha, when the renter, the user, would pull the boat from them in order to do kinyan of schirus, they would take schar, right? You just close the deal with us, pay us up front, interesting, not like in houses. Pay us up front, I don't know, 1,000 shekels a month, and pagra bishas shvira. And also, if and when the boat was broken, somehow broke, there was breakage at sea, then you have to pay us the full amount of the boat. They danced at both weddings. Is that okay to do? Yes, according to Rav Papa and according to Rav. But the Gemara is now playing devil's advocate. Says the Gemara, Atu b'minhog b'talia milsa. In other words, if not for Rav Papa and Rav, just because that's their minhag, that makes it okay? People have a lot of minhagim nowadays. The minhag, I don't even say what kind of things go in today's world here. Who cares about the minhag? The Peluet says minhag is oisius gehenim. Minhag is gehenim. There's a lot to explain about that. Not minhag Yisrael dinu. All kinds of minhagim. Yeah. What? That's what he says? I actually remember the other way around. No, I saw it inside. He says bad minhagim are gehenim. The kids are, the question is, who says that they're right? Says the Gemara, no, we're not basing ourselves just on what they did. Mishum de Masnisa, Tanya Minogo. Because of the Mishnah, not the Mishnah, the Brisa that was brought to prove Rav right? The Brisa that spoke about the cow, that proves Allah about a ship, about a boat is the same, because we know that there's a minhag based on Mishnah, based on the Brisa, based on the Choshev HaMeroim, Rav Papa and Rav. That's why we follow the minhag, and we say you can do both, and it's not a problem, because it's not ribbis. They don't have full responsibility of the devaluation, so it's not a loan, and therefore they allow, the owner is allowed to take rental, and it's not called ribbis. Omar Rabanan, from now till the end of the parak, we're going to talk about Yisoimim. What happens with money left behind to young Yisoimim? What's young Yisoimim? I saw today in the Shulchan Aruch, Yisoimim lo aleinu chas v'sholem, the father died when they were very young, below bar mitzvah. They have money left in their account. What do they know? They're going to waste it all the time. They're going to find the internet code and take money from the bank all the time, right? To go, yeah, they have an apotropos. What do you do with the money to make sure they don't waste all the money? Now, ktanim here doesn't mean young below bar mitzvah. It could be above bar mitzvah as long as they don't know how to deal with money, which today is still, I don't know, 45, yeah? Whatever, yeah. Charlie is what's the age, but Lamaisa, Yisayimim that are young, we take care of their money in a way that's different to other people, as we're going to explain. Amar Rabanan, Omar Shmuel. Boom. Beis Din are allowed to encourage, actually, that the money of the Yisayimim may be what? Lent out Ribbis. In other words, those Yisayimim can't exactly start a business. They're learning Cheder, they're learning Beis Yaakov. They're not going to start a business. What do you do when you can't run a business? You lend the money, Ribbis. Who will do it for them? Beis Din, apotropos, actually, it's machlokes, the Maisa, and that's allowed in order to make sure that excuse me one second. Yeah. So what do you do when you want to make easy money for the Yisayimim? We can't just let them squander and waste all the money, right? So what's a good way to get money? They lend it Ribbis, and the money comes in until one day they grow and they start doing some proper business, buying land with that money. Meanwhile, we want something to generate money, so let's lend it Ribbis. Doraisa. Says the Gemara, Omar le Rav Nachman, excuse me, Bishum diat mininu, with all the respect for them being Yisayimim and us being flexible, Safina leu Isura, do we feed them an Isser? Right? In other words, how can they eat the Isser of Ribbis? Tosfos points out that the other person is also over an Isser, the Loive. Tosfos points it out, I'm not going there right now. Tosfos says it's only when, Tosfos says something actually interesting. He says that the Isser is always mutual. Had it been okay for the Yisayimim to lend, it's also okay to borrow, which we're going to see at the end. Very interesting. Let's say Ribbis is allowed, which at the end we'll see when it's allowed sometimes. Then both parties are okay. Yeah. In other words, it's always it's all or nothing. We're in it together, in or out, the same thing. Now, the question is, how come you're allowed to take their money and give them money of Isser? And the Gemara talks very sharply now. Yatsmi de achli de lav de du. Yisayimim who eat something that's not theirs, meaning they get fed with what? Money that doesn't belong to them because it's Ribbis, leis lubato shivkayu. Wow. They should go after the one who left them. They should follow the father to the grave. Wow. You think you do them a favor? Somebody who eats Ribbis is going to die. And all the money, what did we say yesterday? The Chosam Mismoititim is going to lose his money. The money is going to implode. Amar lei, so therefore must be something is wrong here. Amar lei, he told him, yeah. In other words, now Rav Nachman is now questioning Rabanan, and he says, "Excuse me, Emily izu gufa de'uvde'echyavi. Tell me, my friend, tell me, my beloved, easy. Tell me how exactly was the story. I'm sure that nobody with his right mind actually said that Yisayimim may lend Ribbis. I'm sure you saw a case in Beis Din and you misinterpreted the case, and that happens with Gdolim all the time. You know that. From Moshe Feinstein with the milk. Many times we see Gdolim doing something and we misinterpreted their actions, right? And you already come and jump to conclusions that this is the halacha. It's not. What was the story with Yisayimim? Orale, I'll tell you the story that I've seen, and let's see how we explain it. Ahud Duda, there was a dude, you know, Dud Shemesh, yeah, those who live in Israel. Ahud Duda, there was a big pot. That's what dude really means. Calderon, there was a very big pot. The Bnei Mar Ukva, that pot belonged to the Yisayimim of Mar Ukva. Nice. The Hava, now they were Yisayimim, they're orphans, and that's what they owned. That was their business. What was the business? Rent a pot. Rent a pot to cook your big cholent for your next simcha. Nice, rent a pot. The Havi Bei Mar Shmuel, the one who took care of it as supposedly an apotropos, the adult, responsible adult that actually dealt with renting the Yisayimim spot, he was Mar Shmuel. Okay. Takil v'yahiv lei, takil v'shakil lei, which means every time he would rent a pot, that pot was made out of copper. Copper is not exactly stainless steel, yeah. And copper, especially back then, yeah, the pots were much more, flimsy, not so strong. And every time a person would use the pot, yeah, the renter, the pot would actually, two things would happen. The main thing would happen, there would be a little bit of loss, not total loss, but there was some kind of loss because some of the metal of the copper actually would just chip away or burn away. So that's what erode. Okay, erode, fine. And therefore, shakil v'yoiv, shakil v'shakil, which means every time he would wait before giving to the customer and wait on the way back. And what? And would demand, excuse me, yeah, they would measure it, would be significant. He wasn't a miserly person, just it was significant. And therefore, the loss, the partial loss, not total loss, the partial loss of the copper would be compensated by the person who hired. And besides that, he also took what? Monthly fee, rental. Very good, very good. Frag the Gemara, Shakil Agra, the Shakil Pachta. He took both. He took the Agra, the Schar, the monthly fee, and also would demand the loss, mamish like the boat, right? Omar le, yeah, and he's asking, Agra loy Pachta, vi Pachta loy Agra. How can you take both? Isn't it Ribbis? Isn't, we know the answer, but he didn't know. Isn't it Ribbis? L'choyer, it's a problem of Ribbis here. Because why? You're both taking, you know that the loss will be compensated from their own pocket, from their own money. So that's like a loan. Yeah, let's make another section to the chart. Yeah, this is now rent a pot rental. Yeah, pot rental. And here you're chayav for the partial loss. The loss is either full or partial. Okay? You chayav, if you chayav, and on top of that, you're also taking money, Omer lei. So now, says Rav Nachman, no, you completely misunderstood. You think that what? It's real Ribbis, and it's allowed. Oh, so because it is. L'daitoi, that's called like a borrower, chayav, to pay for the loss, and he's taking money. Oh, so you see Ribbis is allowed, because it's his time. Oh, poor kinderlach, what can they do? Says Rav Nachman, ma pitom. Ki ha, that case, afilu b'diknani nami shari lemebad. That would be allowed even if the Yisomim had beards, zakan. Even if those Yisomim were very savvy businessmen, adults, regular people that happened to lose their parents, but they're 30 years old, savvy businessmen from Manhattan, they would be just as allowed. Why? They accept upon themselves, meaning the Yisomim, bear the loss, absorb another area of loss of the Chuscha de Nechosha, which means this is now another section which up until now we didn't speak about, and that is the wear and tear of the actual remaining copper. Says Rashi that the copper itself not only would get lost, the remaining copper would be burnt and be lower in quality. The wear and tear was significant. And that is something that the other people are exempt from. And therefore, again, just like here we say it's potter from the devaluation, here they're potter on the wear and tear. Once we found one area of Petur, sigh of relief, because that's not already alva. Alva, you have to be chayv on all three accounts. You see, the chart is Baruch Hashem, yeah? Only if it's complete chiyuv on the side of the love, but then it's alone and it's straight. Once we find one area that it's potter, this or that, then we can say that's not alva. What is it? Baruch Hashem, it's a schirus. Schirus, you're allowed to take money for schirus, and let the Gemara say it with much nicer words. Says the Gemara, the kam the meikli nechosha, the more that the nechosha gets burnt, kolui botzir dameho. There's less money, and that money the Yisomim absorbed, and therefore it's not like alva. Toisus is asking, why do you have to go to different grounds here? Says Toisus, because here they're chayv. Big chiddush. Here we must say, yeah, in the pot rental, the chayv and devaluation. It's a big chiddush. In other words, if the pot became worth less mitzad the market, they would have to compensate them for that. Wow, unbelievable. And on the other hand, here the bichayv says Tosfos, the boat also has wear and tear because the wood of the boat, especially back then, would be a bit eroded or soggy or wet from the sea. You know, there's like green, the ivy. What? Algae, the algae, right. So yeah, so those things would be that they would absorb, yeah, that they would be chayav the renters. Very good. So Lamaisa, don't prove from here anything. It's nothing to do with the assignment. As long as there's one area of obligation which they're exempt from, the renters, it's called rental, and you can take money for that. Baruch Hashem. However, having said that, we're going to see that there is a kula for Yasoimim. Baruch Hashem. Omar Abba Vel Shilo Omar Rav Chizda. V'amrila, some say that it's Omar Rabba Bar Yosef Bar Chama Mar Sheshes. Moshel Yesoimim. The money of Yesoimim, mutar la'alvoison, one's allowed to rent them out. In other words, not to rent out, to lend, really, because it's money. Again, Beis Din makes sure that somebody deals with their money, either Beis Din themselves or apotropos, and that person lends their money because we do want them to get some kind of interest. What kind of interest? Korov lesachar v'rochek lehefsed, which means we're back to Iska. Back to Iska. The Yisraelim cannot stam lend for Ribbis, no way. However, they can play Ribbis derabanan. That's the halacha. For Yisraelim, Ribbis derabanan is allowed. Why is this Ribbis derabanan? Korov lesachar v'rochek lehefsed, which means the Yisraelim may lend someone money, right? Okay. And that person is not stam a borrower, he is a worker. The Yisraelim are the investors, okay? They're young boys, but they have somebody, an adult that invests on their behalf. And the conditions are korov l'sachar v'rochek lehefsed, which means the Yisraelim say, up until now we spoke about a mashkia, an investor, and a worker. How do they go? Half-half, right? They go half-half, but because the work is done for free, you have to pay for the work, right? That was always the rule. We said, let's go half-half, let's be fair. I'm the investor. At the end of the day, I'm giving you 1,000 shekels cow. Yeah, if there's a loss of 200 shekels, you pay me how much? 900, 800 plus the 100 that's my loss. Your loss, I'm absorbing half the loss. Yeah, don't pay me the whole thing. And if we make from this cow becomes a celebrity cow 2 million shekels, you take a million, I take a million. That is the standard case, which we'll discuss later. However, the Yisraelim can play it with higher profit for themselves. I'm repeating the words. Listen to the words. Korov l'sachar v'rochek lehefsed, which means those Yisraelim can make a deal, or whoever's in charge of them, and tell the worker, we are investors, we want korov l'sachar. We want, let's say, 80% of the profit, and we're only willing to absorb 20 or even 0% of the hefsed, which means if instead of 1,000 the cow comes back 800, you have to compensate us complete 1,000. Yeah. In other words, we play with a balance for the favor of the Yisomim. Now, is that allowed with or without paying the worker? Machlokas meforshim. I saw Maram Shif. I saw the Besesif saying differently. Lamaisa, yeah, let's follow the Maram Shif. According to Maram Shif, that is allowed. That, according to Maram Shif, when you take a big cut of the profit and a small margin of the loss, which is unfair, and it's very much for the benefit of the investor, he says a big chiddush. Even if you pay him a salary, it doesn't pater you from Ribbis. Because the money itself is much more. Forget about the work. The money is so much more. According to Maram Shif, I'm following Maram Shif here. Only by the Yisraelim it's allowed. But the Yisraelim, because it's Ribbis derabanan, let's say they paid you for the work. It's only Ribbis derabanan. Why derabanan? Because we don't know. It's not ktsutza. We don't know if there'll be a gain or loss. Maybe there'll be a loss. Maybe nothing. Maybe same. Maybe break even. We don't know. It's not ktsutza that we know exactly what's going to happen. Therefore, it's derabanan. Ribbis derabanan is allowed for Yisraelim halacha l'maisa. Now, I want to add, before we continue, I saw Shulchan Aruch today. Shulchan Aruch says the same goes. Any Ribbis derabanan is allowed for Yisraelim, miskenim, they don't have any other income, and also for tzedakah, for institutions, for Knesset, yeshiva, koilel. If the yeshiva has money and they want to do a Ribbis derabanan, like an iska without heter iska, they're allowed to do that. Even though they'll make 80% of the profit and 0 or close to 0 on the loss, in balance, because for Dvar Mitzvah, Rabanan will not go there. The Raisa can't play with the Raisa. But Rabanan, Hem Omru, Hem Omru. Okay? Say this to people who run yeshivas. Interesting. Ton Rabanan. Right, they never have money to lend, right? Ton Rabanan, that's true. Ton Rabanan. Now we're going to come to a very crucial sikum summary, 4 cases that have to do with the sugi of Iska. Now we're not talking about Yisraelim. The next 4 sentences are not regarding Yisraelim, but regular iskaos, yeah, those investments of regular adults. Ton Rabanan. Korov l'sachar v'rochek lehefsed rosho, unless it's a little yosoim, and he plays the game unfair, mitzad Ribbis, which means I'm giving you 1,000, whatever, and I want to make millions. Oh, the sachar, I want 80%. If it gets lost, no, I'm not. No, I don't want to take not even one dime. I'm not going to lose from the loss. That's Rosha, not because it's unfair. Both sides agreed, but that smells like Ribbis, not the Raisa, but the Rabanan, right? However, Korv lehefsed v'rochik l'sachar chosid. What is the Hasidic investor? I mean, what is the investor which is a good person does more than the letter of the law, beyond the letter of the law? That's Korv lehefsed v'rochik l'sachar. You hear the words? He says, I'm such a good investor. I'm so nice to you. Korv lehefsed. I'm willing to absorb most or all of the loss, which means my 1,000 shekels cow, if it comes back to me 500, all is good, or pay me something small. And rochak l'sachar, from the sachar, from the what you call it, from the gain, from the profit, I don't want a third or a quarter. I want a little bit. I'm very good. The guy wants to help other people. So also mitzad Ribbis, by the way, is definitely doing well, right? Could be even without paying the guy. That's also, bear that in mind, without paying the extra maskoiris. Let's say the korev lezeh ulezeh. What does that mean? I saw in the Maram Shif. What's korev lezeh ulezeh? I'm playing it careful both ways. No, not careful. I'm taking a big risk and a big profit. It's a risk taker. Korev lezeh ulezeh. I'm taking 80% of the profit, but also 80% of the loss. You'll have to, both. You'll have to give. In other words, it's both of a rochuk mizeh or far from both. In other words, I'm taking a small margin of profit and a small loss also. Both. No, excuse me. The other case was wrong. Korv lezel means he's going to make a lot of profit and a lot of loss. Yeah, I'll take 80% of the profit if it's profitable and 80% of the loss. That's good. No, that's not chosid. I as a person, I'm equally close to both loss and gain. So that is okay. Again, true that providing l'choira that you have to have a work, you have to pay some kind of fee for the work. Otherwise, the work is ribbis. Rochuk mizeh mizeh zoi midas kol odom. The last two, close to both or far away from both, meaning making a small margin of profit and a small margin of loss. Yeah, both. Then doing midas kol odom. That's the normal way. Chazal allow it as long as you pay the guy something symbolic for his work. Omar leRabbi Rav Yosef. Now the question goes back to the Yesoimim Lach, the poor little Yesoimim. Tonu Rabanan. Excuse me, no. Omar leRabbi Rav Yosef. Hani zuzi diatmi. The money that's left by Yesoimim, ech yavdin alahu. The Yesoimim have money left by their father. What do? We can't just let them eat from the money and finish off all the money. They don't really know how to work so nicely, right? They don't know how to drive a cab yet. So what do? Amale, motvina Beis Din. In other words, we assess it by Beis Din. We take them to Beis Din. We get Beis Din involved. The avina zuza. In other words, what can you do? Beis Din will be in charge, and Beis Din feeds them or brings an adult that would feed them nice and slow, so they don't waste all the money. In other words, let's say the Yisraelim have big eyes. They see that the bank account has 2 million. They're going to buy big fancy cars. I don't know what would kids buy. Whatever. They buy something, an entire swimming pool, ice cream parlor. Yeah. So we don't do that. We make sure that it's administrated in small amounts. Omerle, excuse me, it doesn't help. But kakali karna, as slow as it is, money will finish up, right? Money will come to an end. You know, the candy bag will be emptied out. So at the end of the day, not really helping long run. Omerle, mar hechi. Okay, what would you do? What do you do in such a case? Omerle, no, I'll tell you what I do. But Kinan, we involve another person in the story, not the apotropos, another person who will be the person who will receive the Ribbis. But Kinan, we check into people, but into people's credit. Gavra de isle dahava pricha. We take a person, interestingly, that has broken pieces of gold. Why broken pieces of gold? Soon we'll see. Benaktina dava minei, and we take the gold from him. Ve'avinan lehu nialei. We give it to them. Yeah, to him lehu nialei. We give it to them from him. Korv l'sachar v'rochak lehefsed. Which means we take a person that like that. That person, they lend him money. Okay, they lend the person money. What's the broken gold story? The gold is like this. That person has to be a person that will be able to compensate them in case there's a loss. They're now investing million shekel with someone. It has to be someone that in case the million goes down, really has the ability to pay. Because with all due respect to say that alva always comes back, I wish that was true. Sometimes people don't give back loans because they're very poor. What? He's not a guarantor. He's not a guarantor. He's not a guarantor. No. He's not a guarantor. The gold is the guarantor of the person. The Shulchan Aruch says as follows. I saw the Shulchan Aruch. If he has lands, if the person has lands, which by the way don't have shibud, nice slash lands, he has 10 apartments all over London. Bevakasha, lend him the money. He's a businessman. He'll bring them ribbis. We shouldn't say the R word, but korv l'sachar b'rocha klev said, right? In other words, they only have to pay to suffer very little or zero loss, but the gain will be mostly theirs. He's going to invest their money, 80% will go to them. What's the gold story? We have to know that in case it goes down below the million, he has a way to pay that. And if he doesn't have karka, then broken gold is a good way to guarantee that he pays what he owes them in case it goes down. Because he has to pay them in full, because they're not suffering the hefsed, only the revach, right? Now, what's the gold? Why does the gold have to be broken? Broken heart because the father died? Says no. Aval dover misuyam loy. Yeah, if he has, let's say, gold vessels, gold dishes for Pesach, all kinds of nice fancy dishes, that is not something we can accept. We can't rely on that. Dilma pikodoninu. Maybe those items, maybe he's not so honest, and maybe those items in his house, which we think he can give to them as guarantee, are not really his. It's just a deposit by other people. The atimare yav simonin. Let's say now he gives them the gold dish, the gold silverware, the gold cutlery, the gold whatever, the gold tables. Now another person would knock on the door of the Yisoimim after they received it, give simonim. The other person would say, yeah, I know that under very good simonim, under the 4th feet of the table, it says WXYZ. The Shalkileh, he'll take it. Yeah. In other words, something that is finite, like a kli, where choshesh was given to that guy by other people, it's not his own. He can't guarantee. The shaken broken pieces, first of all, it's not so common to give pikod and broken gold. That's what some Rishonim say. And other Rishonim say there's no siman. Broken pieces of gold is very hard to detect, like something, it's called belgan grutaot. It's called like odds and ends. It's not something with a siman, so nobody's going to believe him anyway that it's his. Therefore, we prefer the broken pieces. That's like a good way to make sure that it's really his and not, you call it metal scrap in English. Yeah, gold scrap. Yeah, like that. People make a lot of money from that. Yeah. Omar Ravashi. Ravashi is still unhappy with that. When was the last time a guy was broken gold in his house? It's very nice if he found that Mr. Guy, that Mr. Broken Gold, yeah? Broken Gold, yeah? If you don't find that, magic Mr. Perfect that happens to have broken pieces of gold, again, back to square one. All the money is going to be mitkale, is going to finish off, is going to end away, is going to, drift away, wasted away. Therefore, Ravashi is suggesting something else. The truth is both answers are true, la'alocha. Chazin and Gavra, we have to look into a man. The Mishapu Nichsei, we have to look for a person who doesn't have, funny business with gold. It's a person whose nechosim, whose assets are Mishapu, are tranquil, which I would call stable. We have to look into a guy who is financially stable, which we know that his nechosim, his assets are not funny and don't have any bank. What? Free and clear. Thank you. Exactly. Nice. Yeah, free and clear. In other words, stable, clear, free, without any shibudim on them. Umeheiman. He has to be a person who's really reliable, who's not going to tell you stories. It's my land, where really it's someone else's land. Vishamadina deoraisa. A person who actually listens to the Torah. A Yerushalayim person who's listened to Beis Din, because any other person would say, pitom, Ribbis, mechitesi. The rabbis all of a sudden are okay with Ribbis. It's not fair. Going to write it all over social media, how the rabbis are so hypocritical, they're all of a sudden into Ribbis. We don't want to deal with such people. V'lo mikabel shamta derabanan. And if Rabbanon Chalila have to, Chas v'sholem, have to put him a shamta, if Chachamim have to actually put him benidui or beshamta, he would accept it. Lo mikabel means that he would be scared of it. Yeah, somebody who doesn't listen to Chachamim, what do? You put him a shamta, you excommunicate him. Yeah, some people would say, so what? He's not a so what in your face guy. He's a guy who cares. That person is very yosher and rich and good guy. That person listens to Chachamim. Then what do? We give him, what do we give him in Beis Din? We give him the loan in Beis Din, which is more like an investment loan. And what do we say? Most of the money will go to the Yomi when you make money from it. If anything goes below zero, there's a loss, they get it in full. How do you know get it in full? Your Kirkos, Mr. Rich, from nice guy, Yerushalayim, your land in Boca Raton, in wherever, in Savion, yeah, that piece of land is mortgaged to the Yomi in case that you lose the money. If not, Shulchan Aruch combines them both. Shulchan Aruch says if you don't have the guy with good land, then we go for the gold. Then we go for the guy who doesn't have land but has pieces of gold. And of course, that gold guy, the golden guy, also has to be a Shamayim and reliable and good relationship, cooperation with Beis Din. And that's what we do, the money of the Yisomim. Again, Shulchan Aruch says, so that's Ribbis derabanan. All types of Ribbis derabanan are allowed for Dvar Mitzvah. I'm not a posek, this is not a Shiur, but this is generally the rule as the Shulchan Aruch and Ramos say. I wish everybody a good Chodesh, a kosher and freilich and Pesach, and I hope to bli neder. I really hope Sunday, 10:25 to start for, let's say, next week a shiur about Pesach. What kind of shiur? Excuse me, 9:25. Sorry, no way. No, my wife needs me at home to clean. 9:25 as usual, but you tell me what you want to do about Pesach. 9:25. But we're not going to continue this for the next week, but we'll do something to do with the Heilige Freiliche Kusher and Pesach. Thank you very much to everybody in YouTube, Torah Anytime, and of course, all my good, amazing friends over here. Thank you very, very much. Shkoyach.